Opening night was electric at Walsh Gym for the women's basketball team at Seton Hall. They came out swinging. They looked dominant with a huge win over St. Pete's. We'll review that and we'll preview the West Coast trip right here on Pirate Vibes. Let's vibe. Welcome to the latest and greatest episode of Pirate Vibes here on Big East Energy Network. I got Pat up early on another weekend morning after a long week of basketball. Pat, how are you?
Brian, I'm good.
I'm excited to talk about this women's team. I know you were at the men's game last night, but you were at the women's game on opening night. The 49-point win. So far, we've seen them twice, and they've won by 50 and 49. What can you take away from St. Pete's? At the end of the day, it is St. Pete's, but I think there's some good things that we can look at.
I guess the first thought would be that there are players on this team other than Catalon Eads and Catalon. Giordano Cudio was the leading scorer, put up 20 points, and it looked effortless out there in terms of, again, she's playing a opponent from a low major school, but you can tell she's got skills, and you can tell why she was recruited by an SEC school. Then you've got Sahara Bishop, probably one our favorite, the one we've deemed so far. Great debut, great college debut for her. It looked like she couldn't miss, whether she was shooting a mid-range or whether she was shooting a three-pointer. And then Cam Rust, again, a player who I had talked about in our episode last week, who, was almost everything that Coach Bozzella had talked about in terms of, doing the dirty work. She showed a little bit of an outside range. So, the difference between the one thing you're looking at if you're Seton Hall and what needs to separate them from the other schools who are looking to be in the top half of this conference is finding contributors who are not Eads and Catalon. And I think Tuesday took a big step towards that.
Yeah, of course, we saw the debut of Mariana Valenzuela. Kind of a surprise there. I know you talked to Coach Bozzella at the press conference. What did he have to say about Mariana?
First of all, let me thank my wife, Kimberly, for recording the press conference. Did an excellent job on that. She didn't feel comfortable being in the room, but, you tell her, here's something fun to record. And, she did a great job capturing that press conference. Again, you and I had talked briefly about, is she going to play? How many minutes is she going to play? But she was a regular part of the rotation. I guess you got a couple of things going on there. One is, if you're looking at the big picture, they don't play a game for 10 days after this one on Tuesday. So you got to get people you don't want her to be absolutely cold when you go out to the West Coast next weekend. And I guess the other thing is that if she's close to 100%, you got to give her some ability to mesh with her teammates. I guess one thing you can say, she did a lot of her work because, she's bigger than the St. Peter's players and she's got a better skill set than them. On the other hand, the fact that she's not 100% physically means that, that makes her contribution to the game on Tuesday that much stronger.
Yeah, it's especially, 8 points, 8 rebounds. And she's been with the team for 4 weeks. She also had visa issues. So and she was banged up a little bit. So for her to come in and be able to contribute on opening night, I think that says a lot that she's going to continue to grow. I know it's, like you said, it's St. Peter's. She was bigger than most of them. Probably helped out a little bit, especially in the rebounds. But I just think her role will continue. The biggest takeaway from the night was Valenzuela, right? We talked about it, as you just said, but 8 points, 8 rebounds. She comes off. She's bigger than a lot of the St. Peter's players. my biggest thing is for her only being there 4 weeks because of the visa issues, a little bit banged up. That she was able to contribute right away. So by doing that, I think her role is going to expand as the season goes on. And it goes back to what you said about Jada Eads and Savannah Catalon. To compete in the Big East and compete for a tournament bid, you need contributions from everyone that steps on the floor. You cannot have a negative plus minus. You can you know what I mean? Like they have to win at a high rate. And especially in the non-conference, you talk about Princeton last episode. You talk about NC State. Like to be able to compete in those games and win those games that you need people. It can't be Eads and Catalan. And the fact that they have played the scrimmage and they've played this game, and Eads and Catalan both have not scored double digits yet, is a good sign because it means everyone else, and you're winning by 50. I understand it's St. Peter's. I understand that it was Jefferson. I get that. But at the same time, you had people stepping up, and I just think that's a great sign. Rebound. You talked about rebounding with this team. They out-rebound St. Peter's 52-31. You were there. How did it feel? Was there a considerably size advantage all the time, like even in the post, or no?
Well, I don't think our team is particularly big in that area. I do think it was a matter of effort. Rebounding is effort. Rebounding is about want to. Yeah. Again, when you're playing an exhibition game that doesn't count, you're probably going to be thinking probably a little bit more about your game than about the team game. But then you turn the switcher. That's the one thing about this team. They are locked in, I think. You've got veterans all over the place. Not only your two All Big East, the people in All Big East you're expecting to go, but you've got Cudio, Rust, and Valenzuela, who are veterans. So you've got, and then of course the other two women we haven't mentioned with Messiah Hunter and Pinckney, who did not necessarily impress on the stat sheet, but Coach Bozzella after the game had mentioned that if you actually just watched a camera of all the stuff that Messiah Hunter did, you would notice the defense she was playing. You would notice the fact that she was able to stick on her player and help and do the other things that don't show up on the stat sheet. But again, that's something which contributes to winning basketball. She's still, look, a lot of the plus minuses are going to be way up because you're winning by almost 50 points. But, the fact that there are things, if you would have to actually be paying attention to the game. And I think that's a credit to Hunter and Pinckney, that they're probably not going to score a ton of points, but they're willing to do whatever it takes to win. And I think that's something, again, to get back to that point, you need at least 7 or 8 solid players. The way Coach Bozzella wants to play, he wants to play a fast tempo. He wants to get in people's faces defensively. Hopefully, foul trouble doesn't rear. I think they can handle foul trouble, but you never want to be like, okay, Catalan's got 3 fouls, Eads has 3 fouls, Cudio has 3 fouls. You don't want to be in that position, but at least you don't get a significant drop off when you have to go to your bench.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick before we start to preview Pacific and San Francisco, the West Coast trip, Cudio and Bishop, right? I know you mentioned them before. It's crazy how fast, first of all, Bishop as a freshman has kind of become a leader. Every time they show them running out onto the court, it's Bishop leading them, which is kind of crazy for a freshman to be able to jump there. And then Cudio's just got this cool, like, swag confidence that's helping out the whole team. It just seems like she's a social media superstar. Like the school loves her. So like what's the, and I hate using this word because it's the name of our show, but what's the vibe when it comes to those two, especially? Now, I'm not talking about how one scored 20 and the other one scored 15. I'm talking about like just being around the team. Like what's the vibe with those two?
I think it might be as much a reflection on Eads and Catalan wanting to sort of sit back a little bit. I don't think it's in Jada Eads' nature to be, very public facing. Yeah. She's not really the type of person who's going to she sort of does her thing, lets her play, do the talking on the court. And I think Catalan is not far off from that, although Catalon is a little more vocal and, but you talk about personalities, you talk about, and freshmen are going to have a personality like that just, because again, you go back to some stuff we've talked about the men's team about when you're the best senior on your high school team, you're going to feel good about yourself. So that's going to translate a little bit. We'll see how Bishop is when we get to more serious competition. If she doesn't play as well and she's not getting as many minutes, of course, Cudio is, I think what you get out of Cudio is this is her chance to be a star on the court that she didn't have the opportunity to do at Texas because, that's just the way it is. You're playing with 13 or 12 really good players when you're playing at a place at Texas, whereas you go to a place like Seton Hall. This is no slight on the players on our team, but you're not playing with 13 other 4-star players on the Seton Hall roster. And and probably this is something which Coach Bozzella and her parents and everyone else involved has said, this is your chance to stand out. This is your chance to, if you want to make something out of a professional career as a player, this is your year to do it because we're going to be leaning on you heavily. You're going to start. We're going to want you to get some rebounds. And, this is something which Coach Bozzella goes back to the press conference and says he wishes that Giordano had, mixed it up a little more and been a little better on defense, sort of pop the air out of the balloon. That's sort of something you got to keep in mind. Keep your head about you, even though you had a big game, the first game that counted on Tuesday night.
Fair enough. All right, Pat, when we come back, first of all, congratulations to the women's team because that was the 800th win in program history. You saw the 800th win. Exactly. And honestly, they open up their season with a victory for the 15th straight year. So let's continue that mojo as they head out west. Pat, you got anything else on this game before we go to break?
Not. I think we've said it all.
All right. Pat, a man of few words. Pirate Vibes on the Big East Energy Network. Welcome back to Pirate Vibes on the Big East Energy Network. Of course, Brian Webster and Pat Madden on the Big East blog. Pat, so we go out west. We've talked about this before. The schedule is there's big gaps in the schedule here. We play San Francisco and Pacific. San Francisco will have only 2 games in, while Pacific will already have 3 games in by the time we see them. What's your feeling with the big West Coast trip in the middle, right before your Thanksgiving break? It seems like there's a lot of breaks. Do you think this is on purpose, or what do you think Bozzella's thinking was here, or was it this is what's available?
I think it's basically what's available. I think he would. I do know that he had another game or 2 set up, which fell through. Which because he was trying to get another big name or 2 on the schedule, and it didn't quite work out. And he probably had himself lined up for something to play over the Thanksgiving because if you think this gap between the 4th and the 14th is big, there's another big gap between the 20th and December the 2nd. I think he wanted to get at least a game or 2 in at Thanksgiving, and the nature of the game is that there are not as many multi-team events for the women as there are for the men, so he couldn't get himself in there. He went out to California last year when they played, I think when they played USC. So, traveling is big. It helps with players. It says, hey, you're going to be able to see some places that it's, no slight to places like Omaha or Milwaukee or Providence. But, when you get to take a trip out to California, it's a little more appealing than some of the places you play in the Big East. So, that I think this is in part a recruiting tool. Obviously he he'll probably get to talk to a couple of coaches out in California about some of their prospects. It's feels good for the players. And, the competition we're seeing this year is not quite on the level what we saw last year. But again, this is about mindset. This is about getting ready for road games, because you have 10 road games in the Big East coming up starting on December the 19th. So this is just about how are you going to perform outside of the environment that you've been playing in the last 3 months between practice and these games they've played.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to see the Pacific Tigers and the San Francisco Lady Dons, I think they're called. I don't think they refer to themselves as the Dons. Let's do Pacific first. All right, let's just break it down real easy. They won their first game 69-66 against UC San Diego. Yes, there's 10,000 teams in the city of San Diego. Me and Pat discussed that before we came on. We didn't want to confuse it. This is the blue and yellow one, UC San Diego. The biggest thing that stuck out, I watched a little bit of Pacific. I watched more of San Francisco, is that Pacific won this game even though they turned over the ball 25 times with Bozzella's defense and with Jada Eads and Catalon and all the guards that come off. You talk about Hall Rosa, and then Natalie Hall Rosa. She's in there and she's ready to play defense. She plays 12 minutes and gets 4 fouls because she's physical the entire time. She's tough. Ari Woodward, the whole team, especially at the guard position, forcing turnovers here. I think out of the 2 of these games, this is the one that I'm not so worried about. But at the same time, this is the second one, right? They go to San Diego, San Francisco, and then Pacific. So it can't have a hangover effect if San Francisco is a tough game. But your thoughts on Pacific Tigers?
Not much. Talking about a lower end team in the West Coast Conference. No slight to that. No slight to the conference. You've got they have, I guess, the teams that are favored to do better in that conference are Oregon and Gonzaga, Oregon State and Gonzaga. My mistake. But I think this is again. You found basically you don't want to go out to California and just play one game.
Yeah.
You want to at least make the trip worth your while. And if Pacific's got an open day in the schedule, things are a lot different on the women's side than they are on the men's side. Because they're not quite as, oh my God, I could lose this game. I'm sure that Coach Bozzella is like, oh my God, I could lose this game. But it's not like, it's not like if the men went to Pacific and lose, people are just going to talk about it on Twitter until the end of time. They could lose to Pacific and, we'll talk about it when they come back. But after that, it will be here today, gone tomorrow.
Well, you can't be like the University of Delaware men's team and lose to a D2 school. So,
or Boise State.
Or Boise State. So, this is still a win that can be helpful. You can't lose this, especially if you're fighting for an at-large bid in the tournament. Like, you have to win both these games. They're must-wins, especially when you got the NC States and the UConns and the Big East battles ahead. The only player that really stood out for me personally was Daria Nesterov. She went 4 for 6 from 3. We got to close out. She's a pretty good shooter. She did have 4 turnovers with her 3 assists. She did have 6 rebounds, all defensive. So, I think it's a player we can control, but it's the one player that stuck out in my head. And Mariana Radikac, they have a lot of European names, so please excuse me. She had 6 turnovers by herself. She's a post player, but that had 6 turnovers. It's just not a great combination. All right, let's go over to the Dons because I think I'm more excited to talk about the Dons. Watching the game, they won by 24. UNC Greensboro was picked second in their conference in the preseason poll by their coaches. So this is a team that is considered to be fighting in their conference for a tournament. And San Francisco just imposed their will, especially in the second quarter and fourth quarter. Tim talks about the battle zone. That's when they dominated this game. I just feel like this team, we match up well with them size-wise. So but this is definitely the team that's tougher out of the 2. You got any thoughts on San Francisco?
Again, this is their first road game. This is going to be Seton Hall's first road game. So again, it's 3,000 miles away. The good shooting we saw on Tuesday night, there's always a question about whether or not you're going to get that when you're going on the road. Because you're playing in an unfamiliar building. So I Coach Bozzella fawned over them. Now again, that's sometimes that's coach speak, as you know. Sometimes you want to make it like, okay, this is, and part of it's going to be he wants to hype the opponents he's playing. He wants to go and say, I'm playing a tough schedule. Because he wants to put the narrative out there. You look at the rest of the schedule, and you can't deny that. But he doesn't want to. If he can, he doesn't want to have a lot of empty spaces on the schedule. He probably could have scheduled, let's say, schools like Rider and schools like FDU and schools like Wagner to fill the schedule, and he's used those schools like that in the past. But now he wants to play some serious. He wants to play some serious opponents. So. There is something to that. I'm just looking quickly at that box score, and I'm looking at this player who I think was in their preview. Her name is Candy Adokapage.
That was the one that I would point out. She's 6 feet tall, man. Like it's not. She was impressive.
Right.
Defense and
Paige Beckers is 6'1".
Yeah.
So. But again, the good news is that hopefully the defense will close on her. One thing that Coach Bozzella said as a weakness that he saw, that's basically a question that somebody had to ask, did you see any weaknesses? And the one weakness he saw was they were having trouble. San Francisco didn't shoot a lot of threes. Presumably, maybe they didn't have to. And if this Adokapage needs to do damage on the inside, going against the likes of Valenzuela, going against a Hunter, going against the likes of Cudio is going to be a much tougher challenge.
Here's the thing, though. She doesn't have to go inside because they have 6'2", 6'3s on this team. They are a pretty sizable team. So this is going to challenge the front line a little bit. And their leading rebound from their game, Megan McIntyre, had 11 points, 10 rebounds, and I believe 7 assists. She's 5'6". So she's gonna fight with Savannah Catalon and Jada Eads, because as you know, our guards like to rebound too. It's gonna be an interesting battle. So 11 out of the 13 players on this team are not American. Just to let you know, like this is an international team that's from Spain. She's got girls from Canada, New Zealand, like all over the world. It's an international university.
Yeah, well, they may not have much. You're sort of honestly, Coach Bozzella hasn't strayed from finding quality international talent when he's had the opportunity. I think it's something. It might be a necessity. Be that as it may, again, this is sort of a thing where again you're going on the road. You're basically trying to see how focused you can get this team to be.
Yeah.
Because again, you're going out to San Francisco. I'm sure they're going to go out and do a couple of things around the town and do a little bit of sightseeing. But this is, as much as you're going to enjoy San Francisco, it's a business trip.
Yeah.
And I ran into Cudio and Bishop walking out of the gym last night and said, get us 2 wins.
Yeah.
Get us 2 wins out there on the West Coast. So I think that they know what's at stake here. And I think that this is something where, hopefully knowing what it is at stake. Of course, then the other side is how do you play with adversity?
Yeah.
How do you deal with, I guess the good news is that Eads and Catalon have not showed their best so far. So, if need be, if you need those two to hit the switch a little bit, they should be able to find a way. Eads apparently had some type of finger injury, which is why she was struggling with her shooting. She was she would be what would have been called a probable on Tuesday night. So the one good thing about getting 10 days is that, you can get in a little bit better shape. You can be healthier when you tackle these games. And then once you play that stretch of 3 games in 7 days, including the Fordham game when we get back to New Jersey. You get another 12 days to get ready for a stretch that's going to last from the first week of December all the way down to the end of the schedule.
Yeah. All right, Pat, quickly, what does a good trip to California look like for the women's team?
2-0.
Obviously 2-0, but I'm saying, does it have to be impressive? Both wins have to be impressive for the resume.
The women's game doesn't have as many statistics to full. They don't have as many people to keep. There's a couple of people. There's not like 6 people who do.
Well, if you talk, like Bozzella said last year, like if they didn't lose to UConn by 60, obviously, like they're in this now. If they beat the Dons by 1 and the Tigers by 2, it doesn't look as good because that's what people look at because no one's watching all the games, right? No one's watching all.
Well, I mean, the thing about it, people were watching those UConn games.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, what happened with those UConn games is that, you'd get the limited number of people who are watching women's games, but then you get UConn up there, and everyone's watching because UConn was on local television in Connecticut, and everyone's watching their games anyway because they're in the top 5 of the country. Yeah. But be that as it may, I would say 2 wins. Let's 2 wins. I can't really gather like how much better we're supposed to be than those 2 schools. I would presume that given what they're predicted in the West Coast Conference, on the one hand, you want to say are we 10 or 20 points better than 10 points better than San Francisco and 20 points better than Pacific. You could throw that out there. And I do think that Pacific game will be a little bit easier because I don't think Pacific has quite the weapons that San Francisco has. The only thing I think that worries the team about that Pacific trip is that you are playing your second game in, he said 36. I mean, the San Francisco game is 6:00 Friday local time, and the Pacific game is 2:00 local time on Sunday. That's a little bit more than 36 hours, but the point is you're playing 2 games in 3 days. But the flip side to that is that these women who have been in high-level competition in high school are used to sometimes playing 3 games in 2 days.
Yeah, I know. I coach travel ball. Like you could play if you get in a big enough tournament, you could play 3 games in Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday you can have 2 games by yourself. Like you're playing 5 games and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday turnaround. So
it's a higher level competition, but I mean, you're still the notion of 2 games in 3 days is something which when you get to the Big East tournament, you might have to play 3 games in 3 days. Yeah. So I think it's a good conditioning thing. This is a nice trip for recruiting. It makes the players feel good about themselves.
Inye Ora went to Team NorCal. Both these schools are in that San Francisco area, so this could be a connection out there. Her EYBL team was the Team NorCal, which is based out of the San Francisco area. So obviously, this could be used as a little work session for the assistant coaches on the side. So it's going to be a crazy 36 hours for them, really. Both teams, the one thing I will point out, both teams turned over the ball nearly 20 times. San Francisco had 19 and Pacific had 24. They both won. They both turned over the ball more than their opponent. With Bozzella's defense, I think both these games should be comfortable. But like you said, it's West Coast. Like it's the travel. It's the first time a lot of these young kids are traveling. So I look forward to this challenge. I think it's good confidence builder because you're going to have these road trips. It's a bonding experience. These girls are going on their first road trip together out to California. It's a good vibe, and I hate using that word. I should have named the show something completely different because I use that word way too much. But it's a good vibe for
It's good for marketing. It's good for your SEO.
Yeah, SEO. There we go. We'll just keep talking about vibe.
The word vibe will pop up, and if you're looking for vibes, this is the place.
All right. Well, we had good vibes here. Men's team will do another episode with Timmy down the road.
I'm sure. I mean,
I can't wait. I can't wait. Like we got a big week. Obviously, we'll be back here the following Tuesday for another women's episode. This is Pirate Vibes on Big East Energy Network.
Ahoy there! Ahoy, me hearties!